And starting first with reforms, it just occurred to me that our commitment to technology is a matter of all-time necessity. And I recall, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, thereabouts, during the COVID era, when in Nigeria, I was listening to court proceedings in the United States on a constitutional matter, and it just felt like being inside a courtroom on radio. The learned Attorney General of the Federation has spoken to some of the things that are possible if we invest certain functions and powers in our registrars of courts. But when we make those investments, do we bear in mind the real purpose, the impact, and the function of the administration of justice? How well justice is administered in any environment is directly related to the quality of life in that environment. And I don't just mean a feel-good quality of life. I mean real-life livelihood issues. The price of other goods and services are defined by the price and the quality of justice. How long does it take to get disputes resolved? And the longer it takes, the less prosperity you will see in that community. Because those who want to do business in that community will be worried, and they will make other choices because they want quick turnaround. So as we gather in this strategic retreat to look each other in the face and ask ourselves, what way forward? Let us bear in mind that the administration of justice is not just a service, it is a product. How does it taste in the mouth of those who receive that product? And how does it feel in their experience? I think if we bear that in mind, the choices that we should make, and some of which we have already made by this retreat, become clearer. As Chief of Staff to a governor, I feel somewhat in a registrar to a CJ's or a Chief Judge or a High Court Judge's role. If anything goes wrong, it's my fault. So, and my governor sacked me many times. You have been sacked. And then 5 minutes later, I'll get a call. The governor wants to see you. I said, but he just sacked me. He said, please, Chief, come. And that is pressure. That is pressure. And so I doubt whether my Lord the CJM wants to sack any chief registrar. But this is what we contend with. And the all-important rule of the registrar as a part of a team of men and women to deliver a service and a product is so pivotal. One of the first things to ask, and I'm sure in the breakout sessions there will be further explorations of this matter, is can the registrars of courts do more? Can they do more? And should they do more? And happily for me, the matter was addressed in my speech. And the learned Attorney General, as chairman, even though he said he did not want to steal my thunder, actually helped me to articulate the matter appropriately. In non-contentious matters, should the judges be burdened? Should the chief registrars and other registrars of court take responsibility? My argument and my opinion is that that should be the case. and even in some quasi-judicial functions themselves, that motions for extension of time and all of those shouldn't bother justices of the court anymore, contentious as they might be. Very seasoned lawyers who have some practice, who are now registrars, can deal with these matters. And I think that the outcome of this retreat must point the way to achieving that, either by legislative intervention, amendments that are possible, and proposals that can go to Parliament. Because you will see that in parts of my speech I had referred to previous sections of the Supreme Court Act that seemed to provide a way forward, and then subsequently everything just seemed to become blurred. I have mentioned the rules of the Supreme Court, where the Chief Registrar has jurisdictions, powers, and duties as masters of the Supreme Court, clerks of the criminal courts and registers, and like officers of the Supreme Court, Judicature, and the Court of Criminal Appeal in England, and some of the powers that they exercise in aiding the efficient turning of the wheels of the administration of justice. But one important matter I wish to agitate is, what is the price? What is the price of the time of the court? How much does it cost to convene a court, whether it's a magistrate court, whether it is a high court, whether it is our courts of appeal, or even when the Supreme Court sits, either as a panel of 5 or 7, what is the value of the collective time of the justices who sit and the registrars who work in that court per hour? Do we know? And I think it is time to place a price on that time. And it will help us to do many things, one of which is the assessment of costs and the seriousness of the event of the day. That when times are scheduled for things to happen in court, they must happen. And all parties involved must have a clear consciousness that this is the danger of not being ready. This is the price of not willing to proceed. And these are the consequences that will follow. In my earlier life, in the law firms I worked, we priced the time of every lawyer, from the youth corper to the senior advocate in chambers. And it was the basis of billing in the number of hours that they worked. And I think that this is an opportunity to get professional help, actuaries maybe, financial experts. I see Ms. Omogun in the house, to do this work. It is now an existential necessity for the administration of justice in Nigeria. We must value that time. And of course, as I said, we are rendering a service and we are making a product. How does it feel in the end user's experience? So, I dealt with this, I think, somewhere on page 4 or 6, where I just reviewed a few cases: Ibana and the State, Udinkawa and Eheniacho, Mavis and Sita, and to see that they took an average of 15 years for cases to and walk through our system, and to then ask ourselves, if you were the litigant, if I was the litigant, and I wanted to recover X amount of money, and I started that journey 15 years ago, and when all of the fine principles of law have been stated in the final judgment, 15 years after, have I really got justice? Does that product feel good? And so, what is the experience of those we serve? That is a question this retreat must confront. What is the experience of those who have received our service? Again, there is no better way than to ask the people. I don't know what your budgets look like, but I tell people money must not be a problem. What is always important first is that, is there a plan? Because when a good plan is made, money will follow it. So how can we conduct, for example, a survey in each state of those who have interfaced with the system? Because that is the best way to improve how we serve them. By understanding how they feel and by listening to what they want. And by then telling ourselves we can do this for them in the way that they want it. So there are companies today who offer polling service. We use it for elections. So it affects what we think because we hear from the people what they think are the serious issues. We used it in Lagos to price the Lekki Link Bridge because we had done the Lekki Expressway tolling at the time, and citizens came up in arms that they were not going to pay the tolls and all of that. And it was my job to calm them down. But the experience was well taken, the lessons were well learned. So when we built the Lekki Link Bridge, we commissioned this company to do a survey of all of the people in the neighborhood and to ask them how much they were willing to pay to use the bridge, or whether they were even willing to pay at all. So some said, oh, this is our Ikoyi, this is our Lekki, we don't want any big trucks coming there. Make the toll 5,000 so that nobody should come. Some said, oh, this is the amount. But we found the median. And we debated it in council, and that was the first toll rate that we applied. And people accepted it because it came from them. So polling surveys are very, very useful for any organization that renders service. Some of the biggest conglomerates in private sector still use data collection companies to find out how we feel, whether their product tastes right in our mouth, and so on and so forth. This is something that I commend to this gathering to consider. And it is something that I even commend to every level of the administration of justice, to do periodic surveys. What is your experience? What can we do differently? Indeed, I recall that when the reforms of the Lagos State judiciary started under now President Tinubu, it was a survey commission financed, I think, by the World Bank that brought the outcomes of what people were experiencing in the Lagos judiciary. And that was the basis of also what they felt should be done. Now that I have dealt with that, I think that it is important to face the heart of the matter. And the heart of the matter really are the people who run the system. The registrars themselves. Issues of qualification, issues of professionalism, and issues of remuneration. Above all, a very, very important issue, and issues of collaboration. I welcome the idea of this retreat, but may I venture to suggest that it should not be once a year. In all my public service experience, we had retreats, whether as minister or as governor, every quarter. Every quarter. If you can't do it every quarter, may I ask that you do it at least twice a year. It is very, very important for team building. And may I also, with respect, since you asked me to share some of my experience, no suits, no formal dressing as retreats. Come as ordinary people. And it's not heavy work. What we achieved in many of our retreats was building teams of people who work together. Because the feedback we always got, PAMSEC is fighting director, director is fighting assistant director. So those retreats, we went away from the pressure of the work area. Go to a beach resort or leave town. So let everybody wear their jeans, let them wear their Iru and Buba. We played games, we danced. So part of the process was to ensure that the PAMSEC and the director who were quarreling, we will make sure they sit next to each other and observe them. Based on what we observed at the informal sessions in the morning, where we sometimes talked about retirement plan, we talked about health, we talked about fitness, we talked about computer education. Many of them were supposed to operate systems, but there was no training. So we brought people in to teach them survival and development skills, not court work, not office work. Things that made a difference in their lives. I learned in one of those retreats how to use a fire blanket for the first time. I had one in my house, I didn't know how to use it. Safety at home. Issues that concern them, because welfare goes beyond everything you take home. It involves also how you live. So we will bring doctors, we will bring experts about insurance, things that concerns people's lives. Those are the kind of things that help to build the teams. And then, of course, maybe in the evening, some light entertainment, and we will force those who are quarreling, male and female, maybe a male director and a female PAMSEC, they will dance. And you will see that it helps to break the barriers also. They are from different parts of the country, raised differently, facing different pressures, and they're then supposed to work efficiently as team members. You have to bridge the gap that separates them. And retreats were very helpful for me in doing that. Of course, in each retreat, there's the danger of an overload. And so when we bring people together and keep them for hours just listening to everybody speaking, sometimes we deviate from the point. Let's keep it easy. Let's keep it exciting. There's a lot of variety and relaxation. So it's not heavy lectures. Those are my thoughts, my experience as here. But we must conclude every retreat with a few decisions. No overload. 4 issues, 5 issues, 3 issues. We're taking them back home. When we get back home, they are coming to the highest decision-making body, the Executive Council, for record. This is what we agreed to do. These are the people who are going to do them, because we are going to monitor. So when we get back to the next retreat, our starting point is what we agreed the last time, what have we done about them, how much progress have we made. Let me conclude just to say that my thoughts about the way forward is that a good place to start is to accept that the system requires a turnaround. Let us just accept that. The system was built a long time ago. It is now overloaded. It has not engaged enough new assets. So it needs a turnaround. If we agree, then job is half done. That means that all of us have agreed to look in one direction, a direction of turnaround. And one of the most exciting things that I have had the privilege to do, and I think that serious-minded people will agree, is embarking on a turnaround. The excitement for changing something that is not working. If you have good people with you, it's usually a pleasant journey. And I think that the CJN, from all our speeches, has called all of us together to press the turnaround button. She has come here to sit face to face with you, with her colleagues. She's not asking you to back them, as you normally do when we're working. It's to say, let us take this journey together. Let us agree, looking in each other's eyes, that this journey we should undertake. It will be an exciting journey, trust me, if you agree to work with her. So, you know, some people have acquired a global reputation for being turnaround managers. You've heard those terms before. Successful turnaround managers. It could be you. It could be all of us in this room. And when the history of the renaissance of the Nigerian judiciary is written, they will say the turnaround started on this day, where the Chief Justice was here, with the Chief Judge of Abia, and with our brothers in the Supreme Court, and with all of you here. And when Mr. Mgbeke was here too, and the Attorney General. So, in undertaking that turnaround, I recommend very seriously that a survey should be conducted to get very accurate feedback from the people we serve. What do they want us to do, and how do they want us to do it? As I said, it will cost money, but I think it will be money well spent. I also recommend that we should undertake comparative studies of other jurisdictions where success has been achieved. Singapore was a place that I worked with my staff, especially on urban planning. And every penny that was spent, we sent 100 town planners then to Singapore. And when they came back, they were more tired than when they were working at home, because Singaporeans start work, I think, about 7 a.m. every morning, and they work till evening. So they had money in their pockets, but they couldn't shop. So when I recommend these things, it is to go and do the real thing, not to go and shop. And you don't need to send a multitude. A few leaders, middle level, who experience this thing, come back in passion to implement change. And I recommend that we evaluate and update the recruitment and training process for registrars. First of all, who should qualify? Should we raise the standard? Should we amend the conditions of entry? And then, of course, repeated and repeated training. You cannot over-sharpen your skill. And this is what we impart. Of course, I conclude that we must invest in the manpower. If we want to see good work done, we must reward those who do it appropriately and invest in technology that makes the system efficient, that makes it easy. Just a word on technology and I will be done. I used to sign certificates of occupancy as governor because that was my work. But the number of requests for certificates of occupancy in Lagos State in a week or a month was probably what a combination of states dealt with in a year. So it was clear that that manual thing was never going to work. I think my chief of staff is in the hall. On one trip, I was coming from Umrah, and he had gone ahead to Dubai with 4 suitcases of COOs. So they arrested him in Dubai. So what is all these documents? So he spent hours explaining to them that his boss is coming. These are land title documents. So why is it in your possession? Say they are blank. Anywhere he is, he wants to sign so that he can cover the backlog. But you know what? We had a technology called the Oracle software application. But we were using it for salaries, machinery, plant and equipment until somebody said, but you have this, why are you not, it's not installed for me. Long and short, when they implemented the software for electronic signatures, all I needed to do was to carry an iPad instead of 4 suitcases. And each day I could sign 700 COOs. So If you imagine a life where the Chief Justice of Nigeria is saying we are going electronic, and you walk that journey with her, imagine the relief you will have with all the burdens you have of documents, files all over the place, sorting, carrying bundles here and there. That is the world I imagine you to think of.